organization, an amazing global tribe. Our final Activate speaker of the morning is Stephanie Speicher. Stephanie spent many years in her career working as a field instructor for Outward Bound, like many of us in the room. The lessons she learned from spending time with a group of individuals on expedition have lasted the test of time. Little did she know it would be these lessons that would get her through one of her hardest expeditions yet, her journey as a school principal. She states, the 21st century principal is a CEO, CFO, and a school nurse, all wrapped into one. She continually strives to assist her teachers, administrators, and other educational professionals to enhance their teaching, leadership, and collaborative skills through experiential learning. And as you will find out, she is on belay for the families and the children that she serves.
There is immense power in this room. The power of us. And it gives me hope. As I share my story, my experience, please remember the power of the human spirit, tenacity in pursuit, and above all, compassion. Crying. These tears were coming uncontrollably from my eyes. My hands gripped to the steering wheel. My ears keenly listening to the breaking news report on December 14th, 2012. Hours before, there'd been a knock on my office door. It was my school secretary. She said, "Stephanie, did you hear? There was a school shooting in Connecticut." Immediately, my mind raced. I started to sweat, and I felt dizzy. I have this same deep, visceral reaction every time I hear that there's an act of school-related violence. I said, "No, I didn't." We quickly got online, and the news reports were pouring in. I looked quickly to see, was this a school that I had taught in? Were these people that I knew? I had only been in Utah for 2 years, and so my relationships were still very strong in the New England area. Quickly I realized, no, I didn't know anyone. Whew, I thought to myself. But the images of the children, so trusting of adults in a place that was supposed to be a sanctuary. That drive home, I cried for an hour back to my house. I walked in the door and I couldn't wait to hug my own children, and so grateful that I would get to see them again. As I was wiping my tears and hugging my children, my cell phone rang, and it was my good friend Rob. Rob and his wife Jill were the very first friends that we made upon moving to Connecticut, or to Utah. At least the first friends that would drink a glass of wine with us. You can appreciate that if you've been to Utah. I could hear Rob breathing very softly on the phone. He said, "Steph, did you hear about what happened in Connecticut? Did you hear about the shooting in Sandy Hook?" I said, "Yes, Rob, I did." And we began to cry together. Rob is an educator as well, so our feelings about working with children are mutual. He said very quietly, softly, "We need your help." Our niece Emily was one of the victims. She died today, Steph. It was silence. It's what seemed like minutes on the phone. I said, "No problem. I'll help you in any way we can." Rob and Jill have 4 children, and so we offered to take one while him and his wife traveled to Connecticut to support their family. Months passed, headlines faded. I moved into a new teaching position, or a new principalship, closer to my home at Maria Montessori Academy, a public charter school in North Ogden that serves 650 children. Upon coming into the school, I asked my staff, my office staff, what's our school safety plan? This was integral as a principal. I needed to know. They looked at me and they said, Steph, we have a can of wasp spray. That's our safety plan. I was like, are you kidding? They said, no. This really works, and we keep it up on a shelf just in case. I thought, how in the hell am I supposed to protect over 600 children with a can of wasp spray? And then I found myself getting even angrier, not at my staff or my school, but at society, that I, as an elementary school principal, have to ask the question. I have to figure out, how am I going to save hundreds of people from a threat that I can't control? Quickly, we decided to make a plan, and I reached out to Jill. Jill's sister, Alyssa Parker, the mother of Emily, started an organization called Safe and Sound. Safe and Sound's mission is deliberately built to help schools set up safety protocols and plans so that way they can handle these acts of violence. We worked together for months. We created new policies. We talked to our emergency personnel. We built a new lobby. I researched bulletproof glass. Yes, bulletproof glass in a kindergarten classroom. Let that sit for a minute. We quickly reached out to Alyssa. Alyssa gave us tons of information. And in about November of 2013, Jill called me and said, Steph, I have a question. Alyssa and Robbie was Emily's father, or is Emily's father, are leaving Connecticut. Their memories are just too strong. They decided to relocate to Oregon, not far from here, actually. And they had about 4 months that they needed a transition period for their remaining 2 children. Emily was the oldest of 3 girls at the time of her death. They wanted to put the other 2 children in a Montessori school. They had been in a Montessori school in Connecticut, and so they felt that it would be familiar. It would help with the transition. I immediately thought, oh, sure. But inside, I was so incredibly nervous. I mean, what would it be like to walk back into a school again? Ask yourself that. After losing a child in a school shooting, how do you walk back into a school again and feel safe? Alyssa asked to meet with me. I said, sure. She came to my office. She wanted to hear about our school safety plan before she enrolled her other 2 children. She came into my office and I was immediately drawn. My eyes were immediately drawn to a necklace that hung so delicately on her neck in pink. And it was this picture of Emily and a heart chime. And she looked right at me and she said, am I making you uncomfortable? You bet. I said, no. Sweating. Could she sense my nervousness of my can of wasp spray? We sat and we talked. And as we talked, I realized she was just like me, a woman, a mom, who is now driven to deal with her fear, with empowerment and questions. She walked out of my office that day, and I reached out to hug or to shake her hand, and she reached out and hugged me. She said, thank you. You have made me feel comfortable. I'm ready to enroll my other 2 children. And it wasn't the school safety plan. It was the hope and the love that she felt in our school. I would like to conclude with a quote from Robbie Parker, Emily Parker's father. He wrote this on the Parker 5 blog 3 weeks ago. Keep in mind, the event I'm talking about was 3 years ago. He posted this 3 weeks ago because of this act of school violence that happened here in Oregon, not far from where we are sitting right now. There is not one solution to these events. The answer or problem is not just guns. The answer or problem is not just brain health. The answer or problem is not just about securing our schools. There are many problems that will require many different solutions that need to come from all of us working together. The question is, do we really have the strength to care enough? To look at the dark truth that no one wants to acknowledge and come together to make a difference? Do we have the courage to work together with those that oppose our personal opinions, with humility, working towards a common goal? This is not the time to pick a side. This is the time to come together, to fill the divide that is trying to separate us and put forth the work necessary to make real, significant, life-saving changes. This is the time to support those that are suffering and let them know that their lives and the lives of those lost matter more than our opinion, view, or personal politics. Are you willing to put aside your differences and come to middle ground, roll up your sleeves, and put in the work necessary? If we can't, then we are all part of the problem. And the responsibility for these tragedies, such as this, rests upon all of us. Thank you.